Hello, Cubs fans, and good morning. It is AJ, your average fan here. We got a Cubs game to talk about. The Cubs dropped game 1 in San Diego, 10-4. Not really anybody's fault in this one other than bad roster construction. We won't be doing the typical game breakdown today. We won't be talking about any stats or anything like that. We will be diving into the bullpen problems and why I don't think that Craig Counsell has any real liability in this type of loss. We're going to talk about Jed Hoyer and his misses in the offseason because I think that there's a couple of really important key things to hit on here. We'll start with the fact that you had a series in LA where you had to use your bullpen. You had a spot start for Steele with him going on the IL and now done for the rest of the season. I know that a lot of people are asking why Merriweather would get used in a game where you're up by a bunch of runs. Well, that's simply just because the Dodgers are a very, very dangerous team, and you don't want to take the chances when you want to take that win and take the series. And so now you're at a point where you've used up all your high leverage guys. You've used up all the guys that you trust. Now you come into a game where your availability for high leverage guys and guys that you trust just isn't there. And, again, that is not on Craig Counsell in this game because, Pearson has been heavily struggling. Eli Morgan has been heavily struggling. And those were basically your two options. And, Pearson comes into the game and just no command of any of his pitches, fastball, curveball, slide. Like, he had no command whatsoever. And then Eli Morgan ultimately has to come in and finish that inning. And then Eli Morgan comes out with an injury, and then you have Ethan Roberts comes in, who wasn't even really available. But you don't want to use Hodge and Presley because of, more than likely, if you're in a game today and tomorrow. So, you really have to think about what can you do to make this roster better. And I think that this actually begins way off in the offseason with the missed opportunities. The high leverage and veteran market was absolutely massive this year. And Jed Hoyer just swung and missed, really. I mean, he played the bullpen in the mid-tier market the entire offseason. I understand that you went and you basically fixed your defensive problem at least, at third base by trading away Morel and Paredes there. I understand that you brought in Kyle Tucker in left field, which is a huge get. But at the same time, the bigger problem was the bullpen. I mean, the Cubs roster last year could have made, in my opinion, a decent playoff run had they had a much better bullpen. The bullpen gave up too many games before and after the offense started struggling. And that bullpen really just needed to not give up games in the beginning of the year. You move into this year, you're seeing the same thing. The difference, though, is that you have a lack of high leverage depth, where last year you just had a bunch of guys that took a little while to figure it out. And then you had a long stretch of period of time in the mid-season where your bullpen was pretty lights out. This year, you just don't have that depth there whatsoever. Craig Counsell's list of guys that he could trust is extremely short. For the first time, we have seen back-to-back outings. Even though he didn't come into the game last night, we saw back-to-back outings by Presley that were clean outings. One, he allowed one hit. The other one, he sat him down 1, 2, 3. So, you got guys like Presley, which is coming around, which is great, but now you need your mid-inning guys, and you need to figure it out extremely quick. I do know that, Tyson Miller and Javier Assad are beginning their rehab assignments down in AAA. I hope that they fast track and they're good to go, because having guys like them could really help. I'm wondering why a guy like Luke Little isn't up at the big league level. I feel like he could be really effective for the bullpen. So, I do understand that there are reinforcements coming, because, Tyson Miller was a lights out ace out of our bullpen last year. So he started on the IL. Javier Assad was a little bit up and down, but I think that he is, a solid guy for our bullpen, and perhaps spot starts. We saw him spot start a couple of times between 2023 and 2024. So, I do understand that help is on the way, especially with some guys that you already have in AAA, like in Luke Little. But the problem is this is what a loss looks like based on poor roster construction. Like I said, last year, the difference in that bullpen was it just took time for some guys to really get going. This year, you just don't have those guys flat out at all. But I do think that things will get better. I think that Craig Counsell does have more influence over some roster decisions than he had last year. I do think that, Craig could really put the pressure on Jed Hoyer to really right this bullpen. I do think that last night, Pearson pitched himself into a DFA for sure. He might either get optioned out to Iowa or just outright DFA'd, one of the two. Eli Morgan's probably going to end up on the 15 or 30-day IL, because they saw something and they just pulled him out of the game, which led to Ethan Roberts coming in even though he wasn't available. Which really kind of sucked, because when Eli Morgan first came in, I thought that he did really great. I mean, he got out of the bases loaded jam there with after they had already scored a whole bunch of runs. But then he went and gave up 4 himself in the next inning. And then Ethan Roberts comes in and cleans that mess up. So, I do think that this is a loss directly on Jed. I don't think this is a bullpen like last year where it's just guys didn't have their stuff and the bullpen itself is what was giving up the game. I think that, lack of depth and guys that you can trust is what gave up this game, because Craig Counsell just didn't have any other options. I think that, tonight's game with Imanaga going, if he has a really nice bounce back game, could go 7 innings, that'll help the bullpen for sure, because then you'll see Hodge and Presley. Which only helps for Wednesday's game, right? So, 3-3 on this road trip is still certainly in play. That is what I estimated. I am hopeful for a 4-2. That 4-2 will definitely hinge on Imanaga's start and how many arms could get refreshed for Wednesday's game. But really, I don't think that the offense even played, too horribly bad in this game. I feel like they played quite similarly to how they played in Game 3 against LA. They put up 4 runs. They put up, Michael Busch went and got another home run. PCA just showing some speed on the base pads again. Everybody, getting late hits in the game was the key in this game for the Cubs yesterday. It was just that the Padres just got to our bullpen, and that's exactly what that is. Again, I'm hopeful that with guys like Luke Little being ready, Assad and Miller coming off the IL and doing their rehab starts, I really hope that guys like that can have at least an immediate impact to smooth out the bullpen for now, until you decide on how you're going to improve the bullpen by going after people in trades. And also now, too, you have to worry about Justin Steele's spot in the rotation. And there's also a lot of, not like rumors, but grumblings going around that, a Kyle Tucker extension could heavily influence who you are able to get to replace Justin Steele, because you could point and say, hey, look at this, we locked up, this Kyle Tucker guy for a while. So that could open up the pitcher's market. And things like that, when it comes to superstars, really can be a domino effect. So, we'll just kind of have to keep an eye on that. But Cubs fans, you let me know what you are feeling about yesterday's game. As I said, the Cubs lose Game 1 to San Diego 10-4. I am more hopeful for tonight's game with Imanaga. Usually Imanaga, usually responds very, very well to a not Shota-like start. So I do think that he will have a solid bounce back tonight. But again, Cubs drop game 1, 10-4. Let me know how you feel about it. Let me know what your feelings on the bullpen are. What would you do if you were Jed Hoyer to rebuild the bullpen and get the Cubs some help? You guys let me know in the comments below, and we will see you guys after tonight's game. You guys have a good one.